All right, we are live on Facebook. Hello, everybody. This is Rick from Inside MusiCast, and we've got Eddie here with us today.
Hello, everybody.
And, of course, Kim Riley, our correspondent. And, of course,
Hello.
Today's special guest, our good friend, Lee Sklar. Lee, thanks for hanging out with us today.
I'm thrilled to be here, man.
This is fun. You know what, I was thinking about, we've had you on the show so many times, and I was thinking today about the, when you and I really first met, you and Eddie and I were all correspondents on the Toto network. You remember that?
Absolutely. The NBC or whatever.
Yeah, Scotty Page's company, New NBC. And
New NBC.
He created that. Oh, somebody's feeding back.
Sorry, it was me. Sorry.
That's all right. And so anyway, what I was saying is Scott created this website for Toto. It was called the Toto Network, and it was kind of like Facebook before Facebook was cool. You know, I mean, he kind of was implementing stuff that Facebook hadn't even started yet, such as, remember the Mashcaster? And that's when you were really kind of getting into the whole technological side. You were doing more for the band with video than the band was. And, you know, when you guys went on tour.
The band didn't care about it, and I wasn't even in the band, and I was totally digging it. So I was like running the whole thing. I loved it. I had the best time, and I'm still in touch with lots of those people, which is great.
Yeah, I remember you were telling us at the time that, you know, you're not really into technology, but boy, you've become very technologically savvy.
Well, enough for my needs.
Well, this is fun. Thanks for joining us. And like I said, we've had you on several times before, and I guess I just want to get started by asking you about what's happening with you right now. I know you're doing a lot of YouTube videos. Obviously we're all in quarantine. We're all locked down. We're all trying to make the best of the time we have. So tell us what you're doing right now in terms of your time, your creativity, the things that you're doing to keep yourself, you know, moving.
Well, the main thing I've been focused on is we've got this new band called The Immediate Family.
Yeah. And
it's Waddy Wachtel, Danny Korchmar, Russ Kunkel, myself, and Steve Postel. Mm-hmm. And we were kind of like right in the middle of finishing our new album when all of this went down. So it became interesting to be doing an album, sending mixes. I mean, all of our playing was pretty much taken care of, but Nico Bolas is engineering and producing with us. And so he's been sending out mixes, and we've been going through that. And then we just mastered the album. Mm-hmm. And then we were working with Denny Tedesco, who did the Wrecking Crew movie. And we're right in the middle of doing a documentary film about the group. With Denny. So that's really been taking up a bunch of time, but this really kind of put the kibosh on everything. I was also just finally getting started doing my coffee table book of people giving me the finger.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
We all made it there.
Yeah. And I've gone through my pictures and I've honed it down to 11,000 photographs. 11,000. But now that's waiting because one of the guys who I've gotten involved with, who does books and is going to help me with this, we can't get together until this is all, you know, until we get the go ahead that we can get together. So I was sitting home just thinking of things, and I've had a lot of people over periods of time saying, you know, man, I saw you like in concert, you know, like with Phil Collins, and you know, you were in an arena or a stadium, and they said, man, we could pretty well hear you, but there were details we couldn't hear and stuff. Sure. And I went, and I thought, well, hell, I've have some board mixes from shows, and we had a nice show in Adelaide. So what I'm doing is I've got a little speaker plugged in to my laptop. I play the track, the board mix, and then I got an amp set up next to me, and I play along and just putting the bass at the front of it so that people can actually hear the complete bass lines. And the response has been unbelievable. I mean, some of these have been getting upwards of like 50 and 60,000 views, and the comments though are really wonderful. So it's a strange format to do it in though, because as a bass player, I love being dug deep in the track. So to be hearing the track tiny and me loud, it's a weird perspective, but the response has been great. And when I finish these Phil songs, and I'm going to do a bunch of Phil stuff that wasn't on the tour, like from Brother Bear and Tarzan and things like that. Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to do some Immediate Family. I'm going to do some Judith Owen, some Lyle Lovett, some Toto, some James Taylor.
That's cool.
I'm going to keep going, even if we get the go-ahead and life returns to normal. whatever the new normal is going to be. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep doing this because it's really a very cool community that's popped up on my. I never thought about doing a network or anything, and people are going,
Yeah.
"Oh man, we talked about Sklar TV back in the days with
That's right.
and
That's
all
right.
that."
Everybody appreciates it.
I remember that.
I love it, man. And when people are writing and going, "Man, this is like the highlight of my day," it's just watching the daily video. I just go, "Man, it's worth every minute of it." And other than that, I'm like I've always been completely OCD. And so my yard looks better than it's ever looked. I'm working on projects in the house, and and I'm just so concerned for humanity. I mean, this isn't a local issue. This is a global issue, and I'm talking to friends that are locked down in Pakistan, in Australia, in Japan, in Germany, in France, and Spain. So this is really, I'm not sure where it's headed, because it's just interesting. It's like all the old B sci-fi movies,
Yeah.
where you just go, you build your giant nuclear arsenals and all that, and then you get taken down by a microbe that you can't even see with a microscope.
Right.
That's quick.
I blabber too much. Go ahead.
No,
You guys
No, it's
talk.
good. No, I love it.
I was going to say something, Lee, to you that, you've played so many large arenas, right? To thousands of people. And now the audience is bigger, but you're looking at one little camera there.
Yeah.
The adjustment of, when I hear you playing on some of the tracks that are live, and you're doing it remotely with Judith Owen. And
Well, that's a cappella, that app. Yeah.
yeah, it's really nice. I mean, I love what you're doing with her. She's just a great artist anyway.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And then Pedro Segundo, I mean, he's from London, right?
Yeah, Pedro right now is in New York. He's hunkered down in New York.
I just love how you guys, how you're finding a way to collaborate on and bring this live music on, and you have a captive audience, and you go from there,
Well, I think one of the things that's the common denominator in the whole world is music. And the beauty of doing this is you reach audiences everywhere, and everybody's on the same page. We're not talking politics. We're not talking about all these different things that we get bogged down in. This is, for right now, it's just sharing music and trying to uplift on a daily basis in a time when everything is looking so dark and just not knowing where we're headed. I love this so much, and thank God that there's these. I mean, I'm getting turned on to things like a cappella, and to have something where, like, Judith comes up with a song, she does it, shoots it to Pedro, he'll go ahead and put percussion on, or we're going to do a couple of songs that are just Judith and I together, and we're not playing at the same time. We're each overdubbing. But we did one song that way with the immediate family, and now we're just finishing Somebody's Baby that Cooch wrote with Jackson Brown, and
Right.
just finishing that up. And it's really nice because it's helping keep attitude up, keep chops up, and just keep enthusiasm for living up. Because
Sure.
I don't know.
Thank God for the technology.
yeah, thank God for it.
I don't know if you know this, Lee, but we had Waddy and Cooch on back in, I don't know when it was, sometime last year, I think, Eddie.
Yeah.
But we interviewed both of those guys about the immediate family and what you guys were doing at the time. And we knew that you were in the process of creating the album, this new album.
Yeah.
Where are you in that process? Is it getting pretty close?
Well, I mean, it's I think we've finished mastering. Now, we have 2 record deals. We have a record deal with a Japanese label called Vivid, which is where this all started, with a Cooch album. And then we also signed with an American label. So right now, though, the release in Japan is going to be before the American release. So we've given them a title for the album and artwork and all that, and that's being worked on right now. Kaz Sakamoto is our rep over with the record label in Japan. And so right now we're in the process of getting that ready to go. We were supposed to be going to Japan to do another tour. We've been there a few times now, and that's on hold, of course. But hell, the Olympics are on hold. So,
Yeah.
who knows?
On
Who
hold.
knows? We're trying to get as much stuff going as we can, so that when the gates finally open up again, we're right there ready to go rather than sitting there thinking, oh, what should we do now? So like I said, tomorrow morning, we're doing a immediate family Zoom, just shooting out love and support to the world.
Beautiful.
And we're doing our best just to keep all of our enthusiasm up. I mean, we're so excited about the record. Is great. The record is, and I mean, I'm not saying this because I'm in the band. It's Cooch and Waddy and Steve. Everybody wrote great, great vocals, great playing on the thing, great production. I'm really, really proud of this album, and so we just want to get it out there and start gigging. And we did just before all this broke loose. I mean, this is really, we're very, very fortunate because we did a Rock Legends cruise.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from Fort Lauderdale to Grand Cayman. When we got to Grand Cayman, we didn't dock. There was issues going on, and they sent out a small boat because one of the people on the ship on the cruise had a heart attack. They were alive, but they had to take them off. And there was a big cruise ship docked right across from where we were. Well, it turns out it was rampant with the virus.
Oh.
Nobody knew it.
Oh,
now there's people there's like a class action suit going on against the cruise company from people on that ship. So we were very, very lucky that there was nothing, as far as we know, happened on our ship. And when we got back, at the time we took the cruise, it was only cruise ships that were like in Japan and China that were an issue. So we felt lucky. But one of the cool things is they said, look, when we do those cruises, we never have anybody back like the next year. We all love to alternate it. And they said the response to you guys was so big that please come back next year.
Yeah.
They made an exception for us. And it was cool on the ship, people coming up going, oh, we were like a late addition to this thing. So like it was all these bands, and it just said immediate family, and people were coming.
Oh, wow.
People going, we saw the name Immediate Family, had no idea, and then we saw it was you guys. We couldn't, and then I was talking to like hundreds and hundreds of people on the ship, and they were all going, man, you're our favorites. You guys were our favorites, and all that. It's really flattering. It's so flattering and so exciting, and I just hope that circumstances allow us to get out there and really hit the road, really start gigging and get this album out there. So we'll see. Fingers are crossed.
Lee, did you enjoy the cruise? I mean, I know that's a little different of a atmosphere.
I loved it.
Perfect.
I did one of those a couple of years ago with Peter Asher, and it was the Flower Power cruise.
Yeah.
And it was a hoot, man. I walk on this ship, and it was like, I never took acid, but if I had, I think I would have been on that cruise ship. I mean, everybody's walking around in tie-dye and headbands and flowers in their hair and stuff. So this was fun though.
Good.
I really enjoy meeting people, and all these people that, I think this was the 8th one that these have done. And, I'm talking to all these people that said, oh, we've been on every one, we've already booked next year. And I mean, this is their annual vacation.
Yeah.
And it's really, then when you sit and talk to them, I mean, because I always look at fans as, if it wasn't for the fans, my career would have been a hobby.
Yeah.
And I really have always, as much as when I'm on my own, I'm really a loner, and I'm really content just spending a day weeding and working in my yard and not talking to anybody or anything. But I learned a long time ago that to really do this job right, you really have to interact with people and cherish that audience. And that was one of the things I loved about Bill Graham. Bill believed in his audience as a man. I saw him once, I won't say who the artists were, but we were closing up the Fillmore East with James Taylor, and we were talking, and he had done a show there, and the artists at the end of their set were sitting in the dressing room drinking, and the crowd was yelling, one more, and Bill was steaming at that point, he said, and he finally went over and grabbed the artist by the collar and threw him on stage and said, you get out there and you fucking entertain those people right now. I mean, because without the audience, man, none of us have anything. And I love when we used to do like the big festivals with James Taylor or the sheds, like, you know, Blossom and all the things. I remember I would always, when they would let the crowd in and they would all be out on the lawn setting up their blankets and stuff, I would go out and walk around and people would be going, isn't that? And I'd find myself sitting there with a family eating fried chicken, talking about their lives. And stuff. And to me, I cherish those moments more than anything. I know the band. I know all those guys. I could care less. I want to meet, you know, the new people.
That's who you are.
And that's how we're all hooked up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, over the years, Lee, we've crossed paths not only on Inside MusiCast, but at shows, and we've seen you, and you've always remained one of the most personable, very human type of artists. And I remember the time when you invited me one time. I was in California, and it came over to your place.
Yeah.
And you not only showed me such hospitality, you showed me the fun stuff, because I told you that at that point that I was an art director and an artist, that kind of stuff. And you basically said, you've got to see this. And you showed me your whole art collection downstairs. And I still have some video about that stuff that I've never, ever posted. It was so fun.
That's great.
My question is this. You had mentioned that your tea bucket, is it still in your garage? Did you sell it?
No. I was thinking about selling it only just because I you know, like the past couple of years, you know, like when Phil decided to come out of retirement, we were going to do 3 shows. I mean, we were going to do a week in London, a week in Paris, and a week in Cologne, Germany. And then all of a sudden, those 3 weeks turned into 2.5 years. Yeah. And it's one of those things that I just kind of went, you know, it doesn't do the car any good to be sitting there. But the car is. I have a friend who's an independent mechanic, and the car's been sitting in his garage for quite a while now. Yeah. And we needed to recore the radiator. So he pulled the radiator out and we shipped it up north because there's nobody locally that could do it. It's that kind of stuff's real specialized because you got to unsolder the entire old brass frame and all this crap. So it's over there, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it or not. I never thought I'd be getting rid of gear, and on Techno Empire, I've unloaded a mountain of gear because it doesn't do any good. I had road cases sitting in a warehouse that I hadn't even opened in 30 years.
Wow.
You know, so so it's all gone on, and I've had people writing to me, showing me pictures of DIs that they bought. I signed everything. And some guy bought my giant clip system that I used with Billy Thorpe when we did Children of the Sun. And I mean, it's great. It's great because, well, every piece of gear I need to do my gig basically for the rest of my life is here at the house. Yeah. So I'm through at the warehouse and all that stuff. And I'm sitting here right now. I did a thing yesterday about my gear, and here's my old Peace Love that I carved.
That's really cool.
You know, and it's like I've got all this stuff around me, and I'm having fun with it and sharing it. And I think it's, you know, it's cool. The thing that's funny is that bass is sitting on a music stand. I've had this music stand so long. Back in the old days when I was touring with James Taylor, James would tend to tell stories about like his pig Mona and stuff that would, every time you tell it, he would add another dimension. So like the song is like 100 seconds long, but the story would be like 3.5 hours. So I put an old bicycle bell on my stand, and when he would talk too much, I'd go,
ring the bell.
Ring the bell.
And then he would kind of hang his head and then, you know, look away and then get on with the song. So I've kept that bell on for probably, that bell's probably been on that stand now for 35 years.
Wow.
Hey, Lainey, a couple of people have asked a question here in the chat room, and
please.
Scott Gross, one of our Inside MusiCast correspondents, is one of them, and Bill Lapotka. They both have the same question, and that is, are you in any way contributing to Steve Lukather's new album?
No, I'm not involved.
Not involved in this one?
No, not this one. I don't even know at what point Luke is right now with it, just because of what's going on, whether or not he's had to shut down too. Because I'm not sure at what point, but I think what Luke's trying to do is, since Toto is now you know,
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. I think he's putting something together that he can go out and tour with. You know, I hope that the band that's making the record is the band that'll do it all. That's the ideal situation.
Right. Yeah. And then,
I love Luke. I mean, I would have done anything for him if he wanted, but I'm glad that he's got this going.
I communicated with him a couple of weeks ago, and I think that he is sort of down at the moment. I think what he told me is that he's kind of waiting on Ringo Starr at this point, and Ringo's staying quarantined, of course, for good reasons.
Yeah.
And I think Ringo's involved in some capacity. So that's all I know.
Yeah, well, that's probably enough at this point, you know, because everything else is so unsure. You know, so we'll see what happens. I know the cats are relaxed, and that's the important thing.
Chilling out back here.
Speaking of friends, excuse me, how is the family? How are your two kids?
They are. Let me see if I can pull up a picture here. Hold on just a sec here.
We wanted to interview them. We wanted them on.
They couldn't do it, so we had to get you.
Oh, hold on. Let me.
They are too cute. Oh,
that's them. Yeah. That's
in the natural pose.
That's it. That's in full excitement.
Yes.
Let me see if I got something else here.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh, here's a good one for you.
Oh.
They're trying to wake you up, huh?
Yeah.
Get up, Dad.
That's great.
You know, it's great. I get up, you know, every morning and we take them for a nice long walk, and then in the evening before dinner, take them for another walk. So, you know, they're getting lots of attention, and they're having just a great old, you know, time having me around. They're really sweethearts. I love having. I'm an animal person, because at one point I had 6 cats and 4 dogs.
Oh.
So it was a real nut house, and they all slept on the bed. So it was, you know, you wake up in the morning, you look like I'm a man, not an animal.
Yeah. Hey, Lee, I think a lot of people know that, you know, aside from playing bass, that you're really into cars, and they know that you got your T-Bucket. And Scott Hoke, Scott's a friend of mine, and he's also a bassist. And he wants to know if you have any other cars besides the T-Bucket in your collection.
I got rid of everything. At one point I had, you know, it's a rich man's sport if you're really going to go for it. Yeah. And I had a 39, let's see, what did I have? A 39 Hudson, a 39 LaSalle, a 37 Lincoln Zephyr, a 38 ton and a half panel truck, a 62 T-Bird that I sold to Jeff Picaro, a 50 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. I had all these things, and they were just rotting. I didn't have a building to put them in, so I had them under like tarps and stuff, and mildew would start to get it. So it was great. I sold the Lincoln Zephyr to a guy in Utrecht, just outside of Amsterdam. I put it on a Lincoln website, and he contacted me. And when we were talking about the car, he said, I sent him pictures and explained the condition. And he said, what's the other car behind it? And I said, it's a 39 Hudson. He goes, well, I'll take that too. And I mean, I didn't sell him for a lot of dough, but the thing that was great was with Phil, we ended up playing in Amsterdam at this giant stadium. And I invited him to the show, but I had never met him before. And I said, well, let's hook up. I said, well, how will I recognize you? He goes, so you'll recognize me. And I see this guy walking towards me with a T-shirt that had both those cars on the front of the T-shirt. and he had restored the Lincoln Zephyr. And the great part of that story is the car would have originally had a V12 in it.
Holy cow.
But when I bought the car, the guy I bought it from, he had replaced the V12 with an old flathead V8. Well, the guy, Tim Stichter is his name, who bought the car, and he says, oh, he's a high school teacher. He found 150 miles from where he lives, he found a crated 1937 Lincoln V12, probably from World War II.
Wow.
And he bought it. They went through it with his mechanic, and it dropped right in the car. And so the car's back to an original V12.
Wow.
And he restored it all, and we went cruising in it when I was there. And so I was going, it was the right call to unload these things, because it's like the gear, you know, like basses and stuff. It does them no good to sit. So I'm thrilled when people are writing to me going, oh man, I bought some speakers, I'm loving them, or I bought a bass or something like that. I go, great. I'm not looking to make a fortune on any of this stuff. And to me, I just wanted to move it out and let somebody else enjoy it. And the things that really are necessary for my life are right at my side.
Yeah, so. That's neat.
Well, Lee, my friend Kevin Anderson's watching, so he's enjoying these car stories.
Kevin, if there was anybody who deserves to be in the automotive Hall of Fame, Gold Star, whatever it would be, Kevin's cars are just some of the most exquisite cars anybody's ever built. Man, the Riviera, when I went out to your house and saw that, I still have video of that hang, and it was such a beautiful car. And I've been hooked up to keep eye on other cars you've been building, and you are as they would say, a badass, man. Your cars are something to behold. They're really works of art and jewels and stuff. So all my best to you and your family too, Kevin. Man. Stay safe and be well.
Yeah, we know that, you told me before we started that, some of the glorious things you've been doing lately to keep yourself busy is like gardening and composting. And one of the things we noticed you're doing is you've been painting your wife's nails. So is that something you have to do often?
Yeah, come on. That's not
a requirement.
Well, I had a choice of a colonoscopy or nails, so I went with the nails. No, it's like everybody we know, like all the women are walking around and they're looking like skunks. They got these like white patches up here with dark hair and stuff. And she was going, she can't go see her manicurist or anything like that, and she was getting frustrated with it. So I just said, well, let's do it. So I went to the CVS, and I got some acetone and some base and a couple of colors and did her nails.
That was so nice.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all good. Anything that helps everybody just get through this and feel some sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really
how many guys out there have filled in a little bit of the aging stuff or whatever when their wife, putting some of the little coloring on that kind of stuff. Done that, Yeah,
little top cover,
Exactly.
Well, that's why I was experimenting with getting my collagen lip injections.
Saw that.
That looks good. How much did that cost?
25 cents, and you can eat them. They're wax. They're wax.
I remember those wax lips, man.
I loved all that stuff. Those little bottles with the liquid in them, and you'd bite the top off.
Yeah.
And drink the liquid out of it. All that stuff.
I wonder what that was.
Over the years, speaking of the little things like the lips and stuff, you've been a huge fan of kitsch, as you call it, over your whole career. And whenever you go on, on tour or whatever, you always bring something home. Have you been doing that in the past few years too? Still?
It depends. I've got so much crap at this point that I really kind of slowed down. But there's so many times where really cool things happen. There was a company. I'll tell you a real quick story that'll probably go long. There was a company back at the turn of the last century called Lashes, and they made for soda fountains. They would make like lemonade, limeade, any of that. But what they did was they would have a container about this big, and if it was if it was Lashes lemonade, it would be a big bisque China lemon. And then it would have a handle pump on the top, and it would be filled with syrup, and then they would pump the syrup into a glass and then hit it with seltzer. That would make the sodas. And those things were really expensive. And I found one at a flea market once, and it was like a couple of $100. And I went, oh man, I got to get that. It's great. Well, we were playing Tanglewood with James Taylor, and right near Tanglewood is a little town in Massachusetts called Lee, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And we were staying there, and I'm walking down the street, and there was like a Goodwill or some kind of a little thrift shop. And I see a lime, or it was an orange. It was the orangeade in the window, and it was marked 25. And I'm having a heart attack at this point. So I go in there, and this old lady's behind the counter, and she goes, yeah, can I help you? I said, I'd like to get that orange in the window and stuff. And she goes, Yeah, okay. And she brings it in, sets it down, and I start getting my wallet out, and she goes, "That'll be 25 cents, please." The thing was probably worth like $800, and
Oh
I
my
got it for a
gosh.
quarter. So I mean, I really, as much as I love having stuff, it's the hunt.
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
that's everything. Once I've got it, I kind of put it away and display or whatever. But for me, it's really finding stuff, and the fact that all the years on the road. And it's not a virtue. I don't wear it like a badge of honor, but I never did drugs, never drank, never did any of that stuff. So when the other guys would want to sleep in late, I would just get up in the morning and I go hunt down where all the secondhand shops were and swap, local swap meets or antique shops. And I would take empty road cases with me on tour and just load them up. It was great.
That's cool stuff. Good stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, we had a question from somebody watching by the name of Teddy Bates. And he wants to know, what was your favorite Toto song to play on when you toured with Toto?
Ooh.
It's a tough.
Boy,
one.
it's a real tough one because their book is so strong.
Yeah.
And I feel really fortunate that I got to play with two incarnations of the band, two completely different incarnations, except for Luke's the common denominator in anything Toto. But the first time I went with them, it was when Bobby was singing and Phil and Gaines and Tony Spinner and myself and Simon. And it was amazing. And then when I went back, it was Joe Williams and Paige and Steve Porcaro. And Lenny Castro was involved in it all too. And I mean, it's just giddy. It's such a joy to play with those guys because their music is so good, and especially like when you're overseas, I still never understood. I mean, the fact is that they were just finally starting to get some kudos here in America,
right?
But like I remember we were out and we'd like pull in a little town in Finland, and like 15,000 people would show up at a gig, and then we'd come back to the States and they would be offered like opening for Rick Springfield. not to deny Rick Springfield, but I mean, it's just like, it's so weird. But all those songs, each one of them, man. And when I went out with them, it was like a double-edged sword because I've known the guys since they formed the band. I mean, we were friends. I've known Luke since he was 19 years old.
Right.
But so to be playing with them was great. But the reason I was playing with them was not great, and that was because Mike was so profoundly ill at that point that he couldn't go on. And I love the Porcaro family so much, and Jeff was one of my closest friends. And being that Jeff was a drummer, we had time together. Being that Mike was a bass player, we only would see each other occasionally socially. But when he said, "Look, I can't go on, with this anymore. Would you be willing to fill in?" And that was, I think, when we were doing the Ever Changing Times album with Luke.
Great album.
And it's a great album. So I had 5 days before we did our first gig in Dubai at the Jazz Festival. And I've never immersed myself so hard in something. The only thing that and it didn't suck because it turned out great, but we did the Falling in Between video in Paris the second week of the tour. And at that point, I was still like trying to remember all the songs and everything, where Simon and I, like a couple of months later, went, now's when we should have been filming this, because once it really settled, it got into a whole other space. But I love those guys, and I'm sorry to see that they've been going through such nonsensical crap over legalities and stuff, because they're still one of the best bands that ever was.
I agree.
And we'll see.
Hey, you mentioned the Ever Changing Times album. That was a real fly on the wall moment for me because Luke invited me to the studio. It was after you guys laid down your parts, and I came in with Babco came in and Trev came in and laid down parts. But that was fun to watch. Watch them watch Mac do his magic in engineering, and
it's an amazing group of people. Everybody involved. I mean, there's hardly a more brilliant musician around than Babco.
Oh, he's amazing.
We just did an album with a guy named Stephen Blount. Steven's a pitcher for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or Pittsburgh Pirates. Excuse me. And he's a young cat. He's like 28 or 29 years old. Great pitcher. But when he was in all through school, he was a theater arts major. And so we just did an album that Major League Baseball is promoting and everything once things get back up, and it's all over their websites. And we did all Broadway songs. And the guy, if he was starring at the Music Center in LA, he'd be a credible lead. And the thing that was great was it was Tim Pierce and me and Babco and Vinnie Colaiuta and Kenny Aronoff shared drums on the thing. And just anytime I can walk in a studio and I see Babs or any of those guys, man, I just go, I am so blessed to be part of this community of players, because each of these guys raises each other's bar when we're together. You know, it's amazing.
Exactly.
Hey, Lee, we had a question from, and it's actually something that I've thought about too, you know, knowing that Luke just wrote his book recently.
Yeah.
And Bill Apotka asks,
No.
You've got so many great stories. Right? Can somebody else write it for you then, with your assistance?
No, you know, I mean, the only book I've really considered is doing the finger book, and I'll tell stories in that. No, it's one of these things, like there's so many of those out there. I mean, Phil Collins did his, and Luke's done his, and Crosby and Ronstadt. I mean, everybody's got these books out, and for me, I've just never felt like doing it. You know, I just, it's a weird thing. And I've had a lot of people say, man, I'll work with you on it. You know, you just tell me and I'll do it. And just for some reason, it's just never really appealed to me and there's nothing to hide or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of stories you would never say, because when you're on the road with people, it's almost like client, you know, privilege. You know, you're not going to be saying all kinds of stuff about people that that could potentially hurt anybody or anything like that. So, but odds are I'll never do it. I never say never, except I just said never. So
it was pretty. I think it was pretty emphatic.
Okay.
Hey, just you know, we've had you on the show so many times before. We've had you actually on our actual podcast episodes like 3 or 4 times, and we've asked you so many questions. But I can't remember if we've ever asked you this, and that is, knowing that you played with so many people, is there an artist that you've never performed with that you've always wished you could have? Possibly? Oh,
there's definitely a few. I mean, like I'm still like a massive Elton fan, and it was really. Almost played with him at one point when, and I can't believe I'm suddenly blanking. Oh God.
That's okay.
He was the bass player who was with Elton. Oh God, how could I forget? He was a dear friend.
It's on the tip of my tongue too.
He was hit by a truck in Canada, and almost killed him, and he eventually did die. And they had called me to sub for him for the rest of the tour, but I was working with Veronique Sanson in Europe at the time, and I couldn't do it. But
was it Dee Murray?
No, Dee died early on. Dee is such an underrated, magnificent bassist. Well, I can't believe I'm looking. I see his face right before my eyes, and I can't believe. I'll remember. I'll call you tonight, and for like 3 a.m.
Bob Birch.
But Bob Birch. Thank you. Yeah, Bob. But I've never had a chance to play with Winwood, and I'm just like a massive Winwood fan.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I've been really blessed to work with a lot of people, but there are people that I haven't worked with, and there's other times where you walk in the studio and you just are pinching yourself. I mean, when I worked with B.B. King, you know, I'm sitting, 2 feet from B.B. hanging out, and Bobby Bland is singing with him and stuff. Working with Andy Griffith, I was like freaking out. He did 2 gospel albums, and he won a Grammy for one of them. And I'm sitting there the whole time just going, God, it's Andy Griffith. I mean, my God. The best thing that came out of that session was Andy's sitting there, and he'd finished Matlock and all that, but he had this beautiful thick white hair, and he's sitting there going, who would have thought I'd still have all this hair and Opie be bald? Man, I almost fell out of my clothes. I was laughing.
That's great.
But I really feel so fortunate. Like, one of the people who was a major figure in my learning bass the group was the Righteous Brothers, and Bill Medley and Bobby Hatfield meant the world to me. And the first time I worked with Bill Medley, I was still freaking out, just because he meant so much to me. And the phone, I get messages all the time. Hey, Lee, it's Brother Bill. It's like I'm friends with these guys, but it still freaks me out, that I know them, because they were such an integral part of my upbringing, that I'm still like a dork Uber fan, even if they're a friend.
Hey, our mutual friend Brenda Scott asks, do you have an all-time favorite room that you recorded in?
Ooh,
that's a good question.
That's I'll tell you, one of my favorite studios, and these stories all get so convoluted. It's almost like 6 degrees of separation and knowing Kevin Bacon and all this stuff. But there was a studio in LA called Crystal Recorders on Vine Street, just south of Santa Monica. And that's where we did Jackson Brown's first album. We did James, I think One Man Dog might have been there. It had the most unbelievable playback system I've ever heard. The studio was like being on the Starship Enterprise back in those days. And the guy who basically really put the whole place together, there was Chris Huston, but John Fishbeck was the engineer and producer on like Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life and all that. Well, John is how I met James Taylor. When I was in Wolfgang. So like these things all come back, but Crystal was really one of those rooms you'd walk in and it was great. But I love whenever I work at Capitol Records and you walk down those halls and there's pictures of Sinatra and Dean Martin and Keely Smith and Sammy Davis. When you're in a studio like that, you feel the weight of history and you feel the responsibility of history. So you walk in there and you just kind of go, man, some of the greatest records ever were recorded in this place. And I really, I always try to bring my A game, but that's really when you really need your A game, is when you're in rooms like that. But there's lots of great studios in the world. One of the funniest things for me was back in the 70s, I did a project in Tokyo, and it was in the studio, and I go in and they said, well, we bring your bass. We have, gear in the studio. They had a coin operated bass amp. It had like a meter on it. I guess the guy who owned the studio was making extra money. So I had a stack of like 50 or 100 yen coins. And I'm sitting there playing, watching this meter going down, waiting for a bar where I can drop another coin in the thing. I'll never forget that as long as I live.
Right in the middle of a take, you got to drop a coin in the.
That's awesome story. That's a great story.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's all so crazy. But working like with Brooks Arthur up at his studio in Nyack, New York, when we did Abigail Hannis's record, at the time she was married to Cooch and James. I mean, there's every place has its own stories and adventures,
Sure.
And it's wonderful. You walk in a room sometimes and you just, like the old days of the record plant was amazing, because there were so many rooms and you'd walk out of one room and you'd suddenly see all these cats in the hallway from another room. Or A&M was like that, where I'd be working in Studio B at A&M, and I come walking out and we're almost done, and Herbie Hancock's standing there and he goes, well, what are you doing after this? And I said, well, we're done. He goes, well, next thing you know, you're rolling your gear into Studio A and doing a thing for him. So
no, you're not.
It's amazing. It's really
a different time, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally a different time.
And Herbie just celebrated his 80th birthday a day or two ago.
It's just unbelievable. Yeah, I just saw him at the Tech Awards because they were honoring Joni, and he presented her Lifetime Achievement Award, and Joni was there, which was great to see her and stuff. So, I mean, it's really weird. It's like when they keep talking about this virus in the vulnerable group, and you're going, man, I'm going to be 73. I'm like right in the thick of all of that stuff. And I walk to the market, I go for senior time, when like the hour before they normally open, they let all the old folks in, and I'm sitting there going, God, they all look so old.
That's equivalent to today's Disney World, when you get that extra hour. If you stay on the resort, you get to go to the resort, now it's getting into Costco or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Trader Joe's, all these places. There's got to be some perk with being an old fart.
Well, right now that's it, Lee.
That's it. Yeah,
We got one more question, and then
Yeah.
we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
Jim Williamson asks, you've worked with some of the best of the best. Is there a vocalist that stands out still to this day that you've worked with? A vocalist that you really enjoy?
Boy, once again, I've been so blessed to work with so many people that, I can look back, at somebody like Vince Gill, who's got one of the sweetest voices ever. I love working. I did hundreds of records out of Nashville, did all the early Reba and Patti Loveless and Susie Boggess. And they're all amazing singers. I love Phil's voice. I love Gabriel when I got to work with Gabriel. There's just so many, James and Jackson. Probably one of the greatest singers still for me ever I've been able to work with is Ronstadt. And Streisand.
Yeah.
But there's different levels, because there's some people that are just these amazingly proficient, beautiful voices. I worked with Alfie Boe, who was the original Jean Valjean in Les Mis in London. And Alfie, he opens his mouth and you just kind of, how can you make that? How can a human body make that sound?
Yeah.
And then there's other people that are just, kind of like these funky, weird voices, and you go, God, that's cool. That's weird. So, it runs the whole gamut. It's just like, I don't have a favorite genre. I've been lucky to play in like every genre, and there's things that stand out in each one. Like, having been able to do Spectrum with Billy Cobham is like,
oh yeah,
one of those things that
Awesome.
you just look at as a benchmark experience in your career.
I saw him in concert a couple of years ago at the Jazz Kitchen. I think you were there too, Eddie, right? Were you at that show?
Yep.
And it was just fabulous. I think he did Spectrum, or he did one of those old classic albums. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, when I was out with him, we did one tour together. It was like 16 shows in 18 days. It was like insane. But it was Dean Brown playing guitar and Gary Husband playing drums and Billy and me. And we did all of Spectrum and stuff from Crosswind and some other stuff. But those are weird gigs, only because like we played somewhere, I think in upstate New York, in a little club. And that's when like the real lunatics show up. And I'm looking down, it's like 100 people in the club, and I'm looking in the front row, and there's a guy watching me play with binoculars on. I'm thinking,
that was Eddie.
I'm 8 feet from you, and what have you seen what my cuticles do during the song? But the best part of that tour to me was we played B.B. King's in New York, and we were there, I think, a couple of nights, and one of the nights Billy was really anxious and kind of nervous. You're kind of going, why would you be nervous? You're Billy Cobham. Why would you? Right. And he looks at me and goes, my mom's here. And I go, man, it never ends. At that point, he's just like little Billy Cobham.
We're all people.
Little Billy.
Yeah. We're all just people.
It was great. It was great.
This has been a lot of fun, Lee. We really appreciate the time you've given us today.
Anytime. Man.
Got a lot of people here watching today too. Hey, just before we close, we know you're in Facebook jail right now, and you will be for a little longer.
About 26 more days.
26 more days, and I know.
But who's counting?
I know that the birthdays are important to you. So while you're here on Facebook, do you want to sing your happy birthday song to all those?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to destroy anybody's birthday by
April
singing
birthdays.
it. But the thing is, I mentioned it when I did my rant about being thrown off, because it's not a one-time throwing off. I'm usually kicked off of Facebook on an average of 150 days a year.
Yeah.
For things I don't post, for whatever. But one of the things I miss the most when I'm gone is I really make an effort every day when I wake up to go through all the birthdays for that day and send out birthday wishes. So for the month that I'm gone, everybody who has a birthday in here, just know that my heart's with you, and I wish you all a happy birthday and a safe birthday. And I know celebrating is really hard under these circumstances for people to like have their parties and get together with people, but know that everybody out here is in the same boat, and that we're all sending birthday wishes to everybody who's celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, anything like that. It's like,
Yeah.
always here for you.
Well, just
It
know
just
that
it just
ahead.
hit me right now that, and you just reminded me of this, but my birthday is April 20th, and I didn't even know about it.
Oh, there you go.
I totally forgot. I'm like, okay, Lee,
Happy-
thank you.
Happy
That's for me.
birthday. Eddie,
Thanks.
happy birthday.
Thanks, Lee. I
Yes,
appreciate that.
sending you I'm going to send you a big kiss.
Oh,
Aw.
Get a room, guys. Get a room.
damn. That was hot.
Yeah,
Visual.
we have to get 2 rooms though. You
I know,
one,
exactly.
One I'll be in the other.
Thank you, Lee.
Lee, thanks so much. This has been a lot of fun. We appreciate your time.
Oh man, it's a
Yeah.
pleasure, and to see you, Kim, it's really great to
Yeah,
see
Lee,
you.
thanks
And-
so much for making the music world such a great place.
Yes.
Well,
You're awesome. We love you.
we all make the world a better place just by our being in it with everybody, and just keep positive and let's make some serious changes at the end of this year and try to get everything back on track.
You got it.
Absolutely. And I don't even know if you know this, but when you're gone, I can't tell you how many banners that fly up on Facebook that say free Lee. So that's, I'm seeing that in the chat room
We'll
too.
continue.
Well, the thing is, when I'm kicked off, I can see everything. I just can't respond to anything.
Oh, okay.
I can't respond to Facebook and I can't respond to Messenger. But the
Okay.
one thing I've done is I've told people, like in the videos I'm doing on YouTube, I said, share them to my Facebook page, because anybody
Yeah.
out there who's on my friends list can go ahead and share anything to my page. I can't share anything and I can't respond to anything, because I have people that write to me on Messenger and go, "Are you kicked off again?" Yes, but I can't tell you I am. It's like, oh Jesus, it's nuts.
Oh,
All right.
Yeah.
What a
That's good
world.
to know that that's good to know that you can see us at least. Okay.
Oh, absolutely, and you look adorable.
Well, give our love to Maureen and give our
I
love
will.
to Marcello and Rossano.
To the boys.
And to the
Take them
boys.
out for a walk now.
And, I don't know, maybe we
Thank you
can catch
so
up
much
again sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah,
Take
absolutely. Anytime, you guys. Though,
All right.
my pleasure.
All right.
All right,
Thanks
take
so
care,
much.
Lee.
Lee.
Thank you.
Okay.
We love
Be
you, man.
well.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Blessings.
Bye.
I'll give you one of these here real quick before we go. Almost forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a candle.
Yeah, I know.
And we want that
Made me
coffee table
nervous.
book.
I even got Michael Jackson.
Take care. See ya.
All right.
Thanks,
See you later.
Lee.
Bye-bye.
Take care now.
Take care.